Olá a todos, bem-vindos a mais uma iniciativa do Centro CEREBRO. Este webinar tem como principal objetivo apresentar o serviço de Neurorreabilitação Robótica do Centro CEREBRO, bem como o treino avançado com a tecnologia Luna EMG. Hoje temos connosco o neuropsicólogo e diretor da clínica, Dr. Jorge Alves, bem como a equipa da EGZOTech Luna EMG, representada pela diretora clínica, Dra. Ana Pós-Fiata, e também pela especialista clínica, Dra. Catargina Vienhas. Informo que este webinar está dividido em duas partes. Na primeira parte, iniciamos com a apresentação do Dr. Jorge e continuamos com a apresentação da Dra. Ana. Posteriormente, a segunda parte é dedicada à demonstração prática do treino avançado com a tecnologia Luna EMG. Esta componente ficará a cargo da Dra. Catargina e dos fisioterapeutas do Centro CEREBRO. Informo ainda que, ao longo de todo o webinar, estaremos disponíveis através do chat e na caixa de comentários para responder a todas as dúvidas e eventuais questões. Portanto, não hesitem em participar. Dito isto, vamos iniciar com a apresentação do Dr. Jorge.
Muito obrigado, Cláudia, pela sua apresentação inicial. Vou então hoje falar-vos das abordagens que utilizamos, que é a neuroreabilitação robótica, aqui no Centro CEREBRO, e em específico falar aqui de uma das tecnologias que utilizamos, que é o treino avançado com equipamento Luna EMG. Falar-vos um pouquinho de quem somos, nomeadamente do meu percurso. Eu sou então diretor do Centro CEREBRO, fiz doutoramento e mestrado integrado em Psicologia na Universidade do Minho. Tenho vindo a exercer a minha atividade na área da neuropsicologia clínica, tanto na área clínica propriamente dita, com lesões cerebrais e doenças cerebrais, como também na área da investigação. Tenho publicado estudos a nível internacional também e sou ainda formador nas referidas áreas. O Centro CEREBRO foi fundado em 2015 e desde então se dedica com um grande enfoque na saúde mental e na reabilitação neuropsicológica em todas as fases da vida. Ou seja, costumo dizer que atendemos os pacientes dos 0 aos 100 anos de idade. Ou seja, desde crianças, jovens, adolescentes, adultos e adultos mais séniores. A nossa missão é então promover, manter e também recuperar a saúde mental e neurológica em todas as etapas do desenvolvimento humano, seja em momentos de crise, de dano, seja psicológico ou neurológico. Aqui estão alguns dos nossos valores, que vão desde o conhecimento técnico e científico, a dedicação dos nossos profissionais a cada um dos nossos pacientes, a nossa tentativa de ser excelentes em todo o cuidado que prestamos e de premiar esta atenção por humanismo, com enfoque em inovação, em disponibilizar as tecnologias, as ferramentas, as intervenções mais inovadoras e eficazes a cada um dos nossos pacientes que se é afetado por determinada patologia. Visamos ainda o rigor técnico e científico. Nosso método clínico dá então enfoque à tecnologia, à inovação e também ao humanismo e ao conhecimento técnico e científico. Isto tudo para tentarmos maximizar as possibilidades de intervenção, ter sucesso para cada uma das pessoas que a nós recorrem. Temos aqui alguns números, também dizer que estes números abordam desde pacientes que vão desde situações ligeiras a moderadas até muitos deles situações mais crónicas que recorrem a nós na busca de melhorar problemas que já os afetam há muitos anos. As nossas áreas de atuação passam pela reabilitação neurológica, em patologias tais como acidente vascular cerebral, traumatismo crânioencefálico, abordam ainda desenvolvimento infantil e passam pela neuropsicologia e psicologia. Depois vamos centrar um pouco mais na área da reabilitação neurológica, da neurorreabilitação. O Luna EMG, que vamos falar hoje, é uma das nossas tecnologias avançadas, então, que utilizamos clinicamente este objetivo de providenciar as soluções mais avançadas, com mais possibilidade de ter impacto na vida do paciente. Porquê a neuroreabilitação robótica aqui no Centro CEREBRO? Faz todo sentido porque nós temos um histórico realmente de inclusão de tecnologias inovadoras e recentes que tenham uma aplicação clínica e que tenham evidência, okay? Que nos permitam, de facto, maximizar as possibilidades de ter sucesso naquele caso. Temos um enfoque muito claro em tentar melhorar os nossos resultados clínicos para providenciar, seja um alívio de sintomas, seja uma retoma da vida ao paciente. Para isso, então, recorremos a tecnologias eficazes que potenciem a intervenção dos nossos terapeutas. Algumas vantagens que vão sendo crescentemente reconhecidas, já desde há bastante tempo, na área da reabilitação robótica. A reabilitação robótica permite, de facto, um treino sistemático, uma repetição que garante a extrema precisão. Permite uma intensidade e uma ativação e potenciação repetida, sistemática, organizada dos mecanismos de neuroplasticidade que irão então gerar essa mudança que queremos para melhorar, seja a nível motor, por exemplo, no movimento do braço, de perna. Muitos estudos referem então que há melhorias adicionais quando comparamos ao formato de terapia convencional, tradicional. Portanto, parece ser, e é esse o consenso crescente, que é uma abordagem que traz vantagens adicionais com muito valor. Em relação ao Luna EMG, é um equipamento que está baseado em princípios de neurociência e neuroplasticidade. O seu modo de funcionamento caracteriza-se por ser capaz de detectar a atividade nervosa e muscular e ativar o movimento do braço robótico, dando apenas a assistência necessária para o movimento acontecer. É um equipamento que é aplicável a várias áreas corporais, desde braços, pernas, e permite, então, um treino ativo e funcional com movimento real, dirigido, direcionado à recuperação. Possibilitamos ainda, dadas estas características, uma intervenção em casos severos em que aparentemente não existe movimento. Pode ser aplicado em várias situações, desde sintomas como espasticidade, problemas de equilíbrio, de marcha, dificuldades no movimento dos braços, mãos, pernas e pés, em situações também de pé equino e em outros sintomas. A nível das patologias, também tem um amplo espectro de aplicação, desde o acidente vascular cerebral, ao traumatismo crânioencefálico, à lesão medular, à paralisia cerebral, entre outras lesões e doenças. Passo agora a palavra para a Cláudia.
Muito obrigada pela sua apresentação, Dr. Jorge. Relembro a todos aqueles que nos estão a ver que estamos disponíveis através do chat e da caixa de comentários para responder a eventuais dúvidas e questões. Seguimos agora com a apresentação da doutora Ana.
Hello everyone and welcome to our online demonstration of Luna EMG. Today I would like to show you a short presentation. At the end of the presentation, just some features of the device that I think are quite interesting and would love to share with you. Okay, but first let's start with a presentation. Luna EMG is a robot for both neurological patients, but also for orthopedic patients. We use it also with oncological patients or with the kids. And the main feature of the device is the EMG triggered movement. This is the most unique one because we use the EMG activity to assist with the movement. That means that patient, even with the slight activity of the muscle, is able to work very actively. Let me show you that on the patient. So you can see this is a spinal cord injury patient with some activity in his upper limb, but without visible movement, right? So what we would like to do, we would like to take this activity and change it for a movement. And here's a patient working with the device. You can see we've put the electrodes on his biceps and on other ones as well, but here we are using the EMG from the biceps. And wherever he is active, he's above the threshold line, we are able to see that activity on the screen, and the device is helping with the movement if he is active enough. Good. And why this is so important? This is important because only the active participation contributes to significantly higher activation of the sensomotor network. And this is comparing to the passive movement. So we always want the patient to be active. And if there is no movement, sometimes this is just hard, right, to work that way. But here, this is possible. And with Luna, the active participation can be easily achieved and the patient is able to move. And also why repetition matters. The large dose of practice may be required to produce the lasting neural changes and to optimize motor control. And we've seen that on the device that, for example, if we work with the patient, we're able to go with the shoulder extension, for example, 60 repetition during 10 minutes. This is possible with the flexion and extension of the shoulder. And the study shows that it's usually around 32 repetitions per hour where we work with a stroke patient. So this amount of repetition might be not sufficient enough to gain the neural changes, to gain neuroplasticity changes. And what else we are using as approach in our device? So as I mentioned, the neuroplasticity, right? So through a lot of repetition of the same movement, we want to change the neuroplasticity. We want to influence that. And we want to also work with our patients through motor learning. So that's how we teach the patient, where we show the patient how to contract and relax certain muscles. Then the patient is actively learning how to perform the movement. And this is how we achieve the results even after one session with the patient, because then the motor learning is occurring. Obviously, there are certain indications to use the device, and there will be muscle force, it will be muscle coordination that we can improve, or range of motion that we can improve. This is all possible with the device. There are assessment tools that we can work with the patient and assess the range of motion, muscle force, proprioception. This is all also included in the software. And there are different features out there. So as I mentioned already, the EMG assisted movement, but there's also passive movement. There's only, for example, EMG biofeedback that you can also use with your patient, or different kind of resistance exercises. And as I mentioned before, there are some assessment tools that you can use with your patient. There are different extensions to work with the upper limb, the lower limb, the steering wheel. This is something also that I can hopefully show you live. We can work with the lower limb as well. So as you can see, the device is not only working with a certain limb, but it's actually, you can work with the whole body, right? So with the upper limb, with the lower limb, with trunk, you can use EMG electrodes to work with different kind of muscles, for example, even with the facial muscle. So this is something that you can use as well. We try to work by ourselves with patients as well, just to gain a lot of experience ourselves. And for example, we had this stroke patient here that had a frozen shoulder, and it was very painful. And he was working 3 times per week with the device for an hour. And we've been working on a lot of things, but one of them was the shoulder extension and flexion, and shoulder abduction and adduction, right? So here are examples on how he was working with the device. So here was the passive movement, but also he was working with the EMG activity, with some resistance exercises. This is all what's going on here during the sessions. And you can see the difference. This is before two months of working with Luna and after 2 months. And we were kind of comparing how the range of motion has changed, because again, there was a lot of pain out there, and the patient has issues with flexing and abducting the limb. There's still a lot of things to work with, but there was improvement out there, definitely. And we had those stroke patients working with a lower limb. So they were working on the activity of their rectus femoris, of their hamstrings, using the EMG trigger movement. And the improvement was also visible during walking, right? So this patient started working with Luna, and he was on the wheelchair at the beginning, but at the end of the 6 weeks work in the clinic, he was already walking independently. And other stroke patient who was working more on his upper limb. Before, he was 4 months in the hospital and nothing was changing. And then he started working with Luna, and he could easily see the improvement right away. And it influenced the function, because he was able to make his own sandwiches and just pick up the things with his hand, which was not possible before. Also, we did our own study with Luna. So we took 30 patients. They were working like a standard therapy plus 30 minutes per day on Luna. And the other group had only standard physiotherapy. The amount of time between those groups was the same. And what we've noticed after 6 weeks, that there was an increase of the tight circumference and a higher decrease in spasticity over time. So this is something you also ask a lot about, like, what about the spasticity? Can I work with the device where there is spasticity? And yes, you can do that. And plus, it will decrease the spasticity, right? So you can see on the graph here how the control group, there was also improvement in terms of spasticity, but the robot group was way better in that term. We've been working with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and for example, here a lot with the foot drop. The patient was very excited that he improved during 4-week time. You can check out our YouTube videos in regards to those patients that I'm mentioning here. And really was happy that the rehabilitation went so quickly in this good direction. So Luna could work with this kind of patient as well. We have the experience with spinal cord injury patients. This is a patient that had a car accident, and when she was working with the device, she could really understand better how she should contract, relax her muscles. Here you have her already after 3 months of working with the device. So she was able to already hold a limb and control it, right? And so she was working with the device in the lying position. So the electrodes here, you can see they were placed on her hamstrings. And she was also looking at herself in the mirror just to have the additional feedback on how she is actually working with her lower limb. And also she has been working in sitting position with electrodes on the rectus femoris. Yeah, so after another period of working with the device and with some standard therapy as well, she was able already to make a movement, to control that movement, to even hold it in some positions when we ask, go, hold, right? So because there was some motor learning and neuroplasticity processes that took place. And obviously also the increase of strength, range of motion, muscle coordination, and it all influenced her everyday life. We had patients with the Duchenne muscle dystrophy, so kids working with the device where we have games, this is exciting. So yeah, kids love the working with the feedback on the screen. And also I mentioned already there are some assessment. For example, it's always better to use the objective tool to see if there is, for example, some activity in the upper limb. So the patient that you've seen at the beginning of the presentation, he had activity in his muscles, but he was also assessed with the subjective measurements like the MRC scale, and it was assessed with the 0 point, for example, for his triceps or pronator teres. And on the EMG, we could clearly see that there was some nice activity that he was able to control. So, just to be more precise, this is always better to use some additional tools to see if we are assessing the patient right.
Thank you, doutora Ana, muito obrigada. Já a seguir, iniciamos a segunda parte do nosso webinar. Tal como mencionei no início, esta é composta por uma demonstração prática do treino avançado com a tecnologia Luna EMG e estará a cargo da doutora Catarina, da EGZOTech, bem como da equipa de fisioterapeutas do Centro CEREBRO. Antes de prosseguirmos, relembro novamente que estamos disponíveis para responder a todas as vossas dúvidas e questões através do chat e da caixa de comentários.
So now I just prepared electrodes to connect the first channel of EMG, this electrodes, and this is reference channel. So always when we work with EMG, we have to put 2 electrodes on one muscle, and also put reference electrode close to the place that we work with, the best on the bone part. Okay, so now we will start to work with reactive EMG. And if we want to start the exercise, you have to click on the button New Training. Yes, exactly. And from this part, from the neurologic part, just choose reactive EMG, enter, which means trigger and release. And now to go to the settings, click here, and now in this moment the extension is possible to move the extension. So now what we should do, we should adjust the extension to our patient. So click on stop extension, and in this moment it's very easy to adjust your patient. You can always move Luna a little closer to your patient, or your patient a bit closer to Luna. So try to take his arm Put exactly here and you can change position of this part. So if you want to move a little bit, you can always use the straps and squeeze a little bit, and you can hold this if you want. You can change the position of hand to go to pronation, supination, or stay in neutral position. Click. And you can adjust also the length of this part exactly the same by moving this. Okay, now we have our patient in the extension. So now we can click OK, but after we do that, remember to support this part because extension will be again moving. Okay, great. Now what we can do is unweighting procedure. Go here and yes. Your task is to go with this. Yes, go with this part in this green space. And now ask the patient to relax and click away and confirm. Now you can see that it's not so easy to go down the extension, so it was unweighted. And now we have to establish the range of motion. So you can do that by moving extension. Yes. And go here. Exactly. And we can go further to this part. Okay. And this is about EMG settings. So now it's the moment that we should put electrodes on our patient. Let's put first channel on biceps muscle, so in this place, in the middle of the belly. And 2 electrodes without any space. And reverse electrodes. Now you can see first channel here, we have to confirm and the direction of the movement, so we would like to go from this position to this position. Exactly. Now we can click start. Yes, and here we have calibration part. So click on start and ask your patient to contract muscle.
Pedir para contrair o músculo.
Isso.
Isso.
Okay.
Start demonstration.
Isso. E relaxar.
Okay. And you can click stop. Great. And now we can turn off some graphs, so position and start. And now what we can see, we see only threshold line, which was established during calibration, and activity from your biceps muscle. So try to contract your biceps muscle and go above this line. Exactly. So when you are above this line, the device starts to move, the extension starts to move with you.
Vou colocar os elétrodos em 2 músculos diferentes. Este é o canal 1, que vai para o bíceps. E depois vamos trabalhar em simultâneo o tríceps.
And use this additional straps.
Yes.
And it's calibration.
Só vou pedir uma contração com o bíceps. Ok.
And relax.
E relaxa.
And click on stop.
Já calibramos. Esta linha vermelha corresponde ao bíceps, ou seja, para conseguirmos contrair esta linha, o gráfico vai ter que ultrapassar a linha vermelha. O mesmo para o tríceps, que está em azul. Ou seja, vou pedir para contrair o bíceps, força, Contrai o bíceps.
Can always help with threshold lines.
Vamos facilitar.
So now,
Agora contrai o bíceps.
now you should contract biceps. So you can go lower with red line and higher with blue line, and it should help. Yeah. So lower, yeah, and higher with this one. Okay. And to go down, you should do the opposite.
E agora contrai tríceps.
Okay, so let's go higher with that, lower with that.
E agora vou pedir para contrair o tríceps oposto. Isso. Novamente, bíceps. Tríceps. Atrás. Não é para puxar a alavanca, não é para usar a força, tem que contrair o músculo para haver movimento do braço. Isso. Só com a contração muscular é que vamos ter o movimento. E agora vou pedir para contrair o músculo oposto, o tríceps. Isso mesmo.
Again, we have threshold line, and your task is to go above this threshold line, and at that moment, each device starts to move the extension. So you just need to have contraction in your muscle, and then the extension starts to move. If it's too difficult, because now the trigger hold is quite high, you can go lower, and you don't have to even move your limb, just try to contract exactly. So you don't have movement, but you have some tension in biceps muscle, and when you contract biceps muscle, the extension starts to move. Yes. Is it okay, Anna?
Sim, sim.
You can use that if you want. Yeah.
Fica já com bastantes. Okay, if you want to experiment, because we won't really have been using this extension. So if you want to introduce applications, you can.
Also good to stop on this part, because we want to have the movement only in knee, not in down. Yeah. Okay. When we have the range of motion, we can click now start.
Ah, já está.
You can change this.
10, não é?
Don't. I suggest let's go with 16 speed, yeah, and click. Okay.
Ok. Estamos a fazer agora é um movimento passivo que vai ajudar à mobilidade articular, principalmente.
Agradeço à Cláudia, à doutora Ana Poschiata, à doutora Catarina de Viranhas a presença neste webinar. Muito obrigado e até breve.
Bem, o nosso webinar chegou ao fim. Resta-me agradecer a todos os que nos acompanharam durante este tempo. Esperamos que o webinar tenha sido útil e contribuído para o esclarecimento de eventuais dúvidas. Caso necessitem de esclarecimentos adicionais, não hesitem em contactar-nos através do e-mail info@centrocerebro.pt ou através do contacto telefónico 253 137 687. Por último, convido-vos a visitar o nosso website em centrocerebro.pt e a seguir-nos nas redes sociais, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn e YouTube, pois são os locais onde partilhamos frequentemente informações úteis sobre os nossos serviços e os nossos tratamentos, bem como conhecimento científico e dicas sobre reabilitação neurológica e saúde mental. Muito obrigada e até breve.